It was a dark and stormy night, and 17-year-old Victoria was home alone for the first time. Her parents had gone out of town for a business trip, and she was left to fend for herself. As she settled into her favorite spot on the couch, she couldn't shake off the feeling of unease that had been building up inside her. As she flipped through the channels on TV, she stumbled upon a news report about a serial killer who was on the loose in their town. The reporter's voice sent chills down her spine as he described the killer's modus operandi. Victoria's heart began to racing, and she felt a sense of dread wash over her. She tried to distract herself by playing with her dog, Max, but even his usual antics couldn't lift her spirits. As the night wore on, the howling wind and creaking trees outside made her feel like she was being watched. She began to wonder if she was truly alone in the house. As she drifted off to sleep, Victoria was suddenly jolted awake by a dripping sound. At first, she thought it was just the faucet in the kitchen, but as she listened more closely, she realized that the sound was coming from somewhere else. She tried to convince herself that it was just her imagination, but the sound persisted. Victoria's fear began to escalate, and she found herself paralyzed with anxiety. She couldn't move, couldn't speak, and couldn't even breathe. The dripping sound seemed to be getting louder, and she could feel her heart pounding in her chest. As she lay there, frozen with fear, Victoria's hand instinctively went down to the side of the bed, searching for the comforting presence of Max. She felt a warm tongue lick her hand, and for a moment, she felt a sense of relief. But as she looked around the dark room, she realized that Max was nowhere to be seen. The dripping sound continued, and Victoria's fear turned to panic. She threw off the covers and got out of bed, determined to find the source of the sound. She checked the kitchen, the bathroom, and every other room in the house, but there was no sign of anything out of the ordinary. As she returned to her bedroom, Victoria's hand went down to the side of the bed again, searching for Max. But this time, there was no response. The dripping sound had stopped, and an eerie silence had fallen over the house. Victoria's heart was racing, and her mind was filled with terrible thoughts. She knew that she had to find Max, but as she opened the closet door, she was met with a sight that made her blood run cold. Max was hanging upside down, his body limp and lifeless. The dripping sound had been the sound of his blood dripping onto the floor. As Victoria stumbled backward, she saw a message scrawled on the closet door in red letters: "Humans can lick too." The words seemed to leap off the page, and Victoria felt a wave of horror wash over her. She realized that the killer had been in her house, watching her, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Victoria's screams were drowned out by the sound of her own heartbeat as she stumbled out of the house into the darkness of the night. She didn't stop running until she was sure that she had left the horror behind. But as she looked back at the house, she knew that she would never be able to go back. The memory of that night would haunt her forever, a reminder of the terror that lurked in the shadows, waiting to strike. As the days went by, Victoria struggled to come to terms with what had happened. She couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, and the sound of the dripping water haunted her every waking moment. She knew that she had to tell someone about the message on the closet door, but she was afraid of what they might think. It wasn't until she confided in her best friend, Emily, that Victoria began to feel a sense of relief. Emily listened to her story, her eyes wide with horror, and when Victoria finished, she hugged her tightly. "You're not alone, Victoria," she said. "We'll get through this together." As the two friends sat together, holding hands and crying, Victoria realized that she had found a way to heal. She knew that she would never forget the terror of that night, but with Emily by her side, she felt like she could face anything. The story of Victoria and the serial killer spread like wildfire through the town, a cautionary tale about the dangers of being alone at night. But for Victoria, the story was more than just a warning. It was a reminder of the power of friendship and the human spirit. She knew that she would never be able to erase the memory of that night, but she also knew that she would never be alone again. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories and valuable lessons.